Few things pulled the nostalgic strings of millennials who grew up in the late 80s and early 90s harder than the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. After the success of the original 1987 cartoon, the 90s became inundated with the tubular turtles, with everything from movies, action figures, and yes, video games. Whether it was in the coin-swallowing abyss of arcade goodness or in their gnarly Nintendos, the Turtles offered bodacious beat-em-up fun in games like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Arcade, Manhattan Project, Hyperstone Heist, and my personal favorite, Turtles in Time. These games all became ingrained in the DNA of those of us who played them growing up, and quite frankly are among the very best beat-em-up games of all time. So needless to say, when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge was announced boasting its gorgeous pixelated graphics, killer music, and fast-paced multiplayer beat-em-up action, it almost universally kicked the nostalgic hype train in gear. Fortunately, all the hype didn't disappoint, as Dotemu and Tribute Games have created probably the greatest Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game yet. And huge cowabunga to that! Shredder's Revenge is the perfect balance of the old and new, sporting the classic 1987 series aesthetic, classic beat-em-up action, and radical-sounding tunes of those 90s Ninja Turtles games, but bringing them into the 21st century with a fresh coat of paint. Graphically, the game is stunning, and while it is reminiscent of particularly Turtles in Time in its detailed sprite work, gorgeous backgrounds, and animations, it really polishes that game up, giving the characters and environment that much more detail, almost like the perfect crossover between the classic sprite work from those games and the cartoon. The game is just gorgeous, down to the individual characters' animations, which have been perfectly tailored to their individual personalities, and are sometimes quite funny, such as Leo's sort of stoic leader personality and Mikey's party-loving playfulness. I love Mikey. The bosses and enemies are really well done too, and even little details like the foot soldiers doing menial chores in the background, or those monkeys tossing bananas at you add to the environment, and some of the sprite work is truly impressive in its carefully crafted detail. The gameplay is really at the heart and soul of the game, however, and I would argue far surpasses the original games. From the moment you start, a tutorial is available that shows all the button combinations for moves, and lots of new elements have been added from the button mashing days of my youth. In addition to basic punches, kicks, and throws, the player can dodge, execute some killer combos, juggle enemies, execute special moves, which is different depending on which character you play as, and even charge them using this cool little victory pose thing that represents each character's personality perfectly. The controls feel super tight and much more polished than previous games. I personally love the consecutive hit counter and really enjoy trying to best my combo score each time I play it, and outdoing other people's. While playing with others, it's also fun to see what player ends the level with the most KOs, and the little bonus awards right at the end on the bottom there are a really nice touch in my opinion. The characters also feel varied, and I absolutely love the addition of Splinter, April O'Neil, and Casey Jones. The developers did a great job of making all the characters super easy to pick up and play, but individual enough to set them apart from each other. Leo as the leader feels well-rounded, while Donatello's reach, Mikey's speed, and Raph's power make playing as them slightly different, requiring the player to take a different approach to each turtle. This especially holds true for the other three, with April feeling more lightweight and aerial, Splinter more dynamic, and Casey Jones providing more power. The multiplayer mode options are perhaps the strongest new element of the game, and playing against 5 other players in arcade mode can get to the best possible level of insanity. How could kicking the shell out of a cacophony of enemies with a bunch of your favorite dudes not be? Joining the game online has been a smooth experience so far as well. This on the Nintendo Switch, which I think says a lot. And it's fun to jump into a level with random people if you're playing alone. Both the story mode and arcade mode, while sporting all the same levels, give the player a nice option between playing through the game casually in story mode and recreating that old arcade experience that the classic games were known for, requiring the player to beat the game all in one shot, thankfully without destroying your stash of quarters to do so. The music, as I tend to point out in all of my reviews, is absolutely phenomenal. Everything from the remake of the classic cartoon theme song, along with that excellent animated intro. Oh, I love that part. I literally watch it every time I play the game, FYI. To the rocking old school sounds of the Big Apple and the bodacious beats of the Mutants Over Broadway, The soundtrack is a fantastic mesh of varied musical styles with that classic arcade feel. Veteran Sonic Mania and Streets of Rage 4 composer T. Lopez does an excellent job of blending the old with the new. And speaking of the old, as an added bonus, we also got the original voice actors from the original cartoon back to play the Turtles. Cowabunga, dudes! Overall, well, can you tell? I think this game is totally radical, dudes. And while yes, it certainly appeals quite shamelessly to the nostalgia of every 90s kid who loved the Turtles growing up, including myself, it's simply a very well-made game with impressive graphics, fun gameplay, and a whole Pizza Hut's worth of replayability. I think that this is possibly the greatest TMNT game ever. And not only did the developers help recreate something really special, they may have surpassed it. Even Turtles in Time, I gotta be honest. This game might surpass that game. Huge props to the teams at Dotemu and Tribute Games for bringing this type of beloved arcade game back to the Ninja Turtles universe, and to all of the fans who have been jonesing, no, not Casey Jones, for a game like this for years. Cowabunga, dudes! Thanks again, everybody, for checking this out. I really appreciate it. It was cool to review a new game, and it's kind of a new retro game, so I would consider this part of my retro review series that I've been doing. And in the far future, and I mean quite far, I plan on doing another indie game review, and I want to do Cuphead when I beat it, but I say far because Cuphead is like really, really hard, and I'm struggling with it. But I really am enjoying Cuphead, and I'd like to do a nice review of it. So keep an eye out for those reviews at some point. And again, as I always say at the end of these videos, please, any games you want to see me review, comment below. Please let me know what you thought of Shredder's Revenge. Are you enjoying playing it? If you ever want to play sometime, hit me up in the Discord. Anyway, I gotta say it again. I'm sorry. It's Ninja Turtles. Cowabunga!
Extra, read all about how Shredder and Crank rat things without a doubt. So here's a little story I like to tell about 4 youngsters coming out of their shells. You might be wondering what this world's come to. Talking turtles all bursting kung fu, straight from the sewers, making maneuvers in New York City, bringing it to wrong viewers. Donatello, a veteran thinker, trained under the watchful eye of Splinter.